What's up, besties? Impromptu live stream of me looking at soccer news because looks like we might not have our normal Thursday show. It doesn't matter. I'm here to talk about soccer news. Just a little while before I go on WNBC and talk about other soccer news. So why not do it on YouTube? Why not look at the news here on YouTube? I got a couple of stories. If you guys have stuff that is in your head right now, in terms of stories that American soccer stories. John Tolkien, I have to add that one here. I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. But what about going back to the story that we're all waiting to see happen, and that's Mauricio Pochettino getting the job of the U.S. men's national team. This is Dougie McIntyre, good old Dougie Mac. What, a couple days ago now? Today's the 21st. This is August 19th. U.S. Soccer, Chelsea close to deal for Mauricio Pochettino to coach U.S. men's national team. It's been 2 days. I'm impatient. I'm an impatient person. Like, give me my goddamn coach already. I know it doesn't really matter. Mikey Veras is going to coach the friendlies. Who cares about Canada and New Zealand? But man, give me my coach already. Because the longer this goes without Pochettino under contract, without U.S. Soccer completing the deal, the less likely I'm going to believe it's going to happen. And it's not even like, oh, we're going to end up with some joke of a coach. I guess that's possible. I guess it's possible that we'll get somebody we don't really want. Obviously, everybody is extremely PTSD or whatever you want to call it, not quite that, about an MLS coach getting the job because of what happened with Greg Berhalter. Right? Let's not even relitigate Greg Berhalter's tenure as national team head coach. Let's just mention that, it didn't end well. They got bounced in the Copa America pretty, unceremoniously. And clearly it felt like he wasn't making any more progress. Don't give a national team head coach a second cycle. Stop doing it. Just don't do it. Like, can we put that in the bylaws? Does anybody know how to do that? Can we reach out U.S. Soccer? Hey, Cindy. Hey, JT. I don't think he has anything to do with the bylaws, but hey, all of the people on the board, get this done already. All right. So, okay. So this is what I wanted to say about Poach. Just that Dougie McIntyre gave us this very long time span that this could actually go down. Mauricio Pochettino could officially be announced as head coach as soon as Tuesday. What day is today? Today is Wednesday. Well, so it didn't happen on Tuesday, or as late as next week, a source told Fox Sports, hoping to have a deal concluded in the next 48 hours. Okay, so this is still, I guess, within the 48 hours since Dougie Mac dropped his story. We have not had word. I have not seen anything new on this in the last couple days. I was going to do a search. I'm only not worry about that. Mauricio Pochettino does not have the job yet or is not under contract. You might see stories out of England. I mean, I think it's Ben Jacobs basically saying there's no reason that Pochettino can't get this job, right? That Pochettino, that the Chelsea thing is not really holding him back. Maybe that's true. Let's hope this gets done soon. Now, here's a comment. Urias Tosh, will Poach drop Golden Boy Gio? Well, I think that depends on Gio, right? That depends on whether or not Gio is playing or not. Now, here's where things get weird with Gio. Clayton, did you see what Brian Sciaretta said about Gio being in Dortmund super jail? Didn't he say super secret probation or something? Secret double secret probation? What is it from Animal House? Is it double secret probation? Are any of you guys aware of Animal House? So that they end up in double secret probation, whatever. And I saw the tweet. The tweet is weird. I've not talked to Brian Sciaretta directly, so I don't know exactly what he meant by this. At the same time, however, and some of you know that I do a radio show. I do that with Eric Winalda. It's on Sirius XMFC, 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern most days. Listen to it. Sign up. Tell people you're listening because of me. That would help me a lot with my bosses. Just do that, please. But Eric has told me that he's very high on Gio this season and that he expects Gio to have an opportunity to play at Dortmund and that we shouldn't be freaking out about Gio Reyna's status. Now, it's been, again, it's leaks. It's drips and drabs, right? It's not even like we have a clear pick. And again, Eric is saying this because Eric's got people in Germany he talks to, and he seems to believe, based on the information he's been given, not public information, that Gio is going to get a run, that Gio is going to have an opportunity to at least play, maybe not start. I think that's probably a bridge too far. Remember that Dortmund has a new head coach in Nuri Sahin. Like there are so many unknowns and variables here. So when you say, will Poch drop Gio? I'm willing to bet that if Gio Reyna isn't playing anywhere, but certainly it looks like Dortmund, at least for the start of the season, because no loan has come together, then he's not going to play for the U.S. men's national team. And you know what? I'm fine with that. And maybe I've even done a bit of a 180 on this, because there was a time when the U.S. men's national team could not buy a shot on goal. I mean, it's not that long ago. It felt like we just had nothing going forward. So why wouldn't you put in a player who can unlock a defense better than anybody else in our player pool? I mean, it might be that Gio's the only player we have with that unique ability. Like, don't come at me with Malik Tillman. He's not ready yet, or he hasn't shown that level. Gio's the one player that looked like he could do it. So why wouldn't you put him in the lineup if you can't score a goal? Get the guy in that can make the final pass. And it happened a couple times, right? We saw the connection he created with Balogun. We got excited about it. And it became this thing, well, Gio has to play because we just don't have anybody else like him in the player pool. In fact, if you go back and look at the Best Soccer Show archives or listen to what I've said on the radio, I've probably said that thing. I've probably said, well, he's got to play, right? Like you can't leave Gio out, because who else you got that's going to be able to do what Gio can do? At this point, though, with a new coach who I'm positive is going to have some different ideas about how this team should play, maybe that's no longer a thing. Hey, you're not playing at your club level, at your club team, but we need somebody like you in the lineup. You're going to play anyway. The message needs to be sent. How many times have we talked about this with the new coach? It's what Tyler Adams was saying when he said we need a ruthless coach. It's, hey, we can't have somebody come in and basically say, oh, yeah, your talent gives you a chance to play in this national team, regardless of what you're doing, regardless of your form. I know there's an argument that form is fleeting, that who cares about form? It's about your talent. But again, if Gio was talented enough, he would be playing somewhere, whether it was Nottingham Forest on loan, I know relegation battle and all that still, or at Dortmund. I mean, and what the hell is going on at Dortmund that Gio Reyna goes out on loan to a terrible place like Nottingham Forest? I don't mean that Nottingham is a terrible place. I've never actually been myself. What's the food like in Nottingham? Anybody know? Lots of pies? Okay. If Gio Reyna can't find a place at Dortmund, I mean, again, why is he at Dortmund? And it's time to negotiate the dissolution of that contract. Because the sense has always been, and the way you sort of defended this was, well, Dortmund clearly sees something in Gio Reyna, because why else would they hold on to him? They must believe that they're going to recoup on their investment in him, the training that they've done, the development that they've done with him. Where are we right now with that? Now, before we get back to Pochettino, because that is certainly something I want to talk about again, one element of Mauricio Pochettino potentially become the head coach of the national team. This thing, the Gio Reyna thing. I mean, the Weston McKennie thing. I'm getting my guys confused. My guys who are seemingly on the outs. And this is new today from Tom Hamilton at ESPN. U.S. midfielder Weston McKennie is in talks over a new deal with Juventus. So we go from they don't want him. They're ready to ship him out. He's been linked to a couple of different clubs in the summer. He's been ostracized. He's basically been told, you're not part of what's going on here under Thiago Motta, to now he's negotiating a new deal. And this is what we're kind of worried about. Linked to Fiorentina, interest from the Bundesliga Premier League. But he is favoring and extending his stay with Juventus. I mean, let's not forget that he's got a girl. She's Italian. She's a local. Like it might be as much personal for Gio as it is about his career. For Weston. I keep doing that. For Weston, it might be as much personal as it is about his soccer career, but I wouldn't blame him necessarily. Those things have to balance out. McKennie, 25, found himself left out of Juventus' squad for the final 2 preseason matches. McKennie, goalkeeper Szczesny, and Chiesa were all exiled, with manager Thiago Motta saying those players have to find a new solution. Yeah, okay. And now we're back to, okay, well, it looks like Weston McKennie is going to be involved. Again, the 180 that these managers sometimes do. Motta telling a news conference on August 18th, 3 days ago, McKennie is useful and a functional player for our needs. And he did not get off the bench against Como in the opening game of the season for Juventus. I mean, I would just like it to be easier for Weston McKennie. Like, I would just like it to be, hey, Weston McKennie is an established starter at a top-level club somewhere in Europe, because he clearly has the talent to do it. Like, he clearly has the talent to be not this in limbo player all the time, unless it's about his personality. And how many of you saw that too? How many people heard the stories that the reason Weston McKennie was on the outs at Juve and why no move had materialized up until this recent development where apparently he's talking about extending his contract was because he's a problem child, because he's locker room cancer, because he does, I don't know, whatever. We see him as this fun-loving guy, but maybe there are plenty of managers who are just, we don't need that guy. No, look, okay, this is an interesting one, all right? Not good enough for Juventus. I think that might be true if we're talking about a Juventus that can win the league. Right? If we're talking about a Juventus whose ambitions are, and I know Juventus always wants to win the league, clearly that's their history. But this Juve, with a manager who had great success last year, Bologna, and deserves this opportunity and clearly knows what he's doing, but with a Juve who's sort of been in rebuild for a while now, since Ronaldo. I mean, you can go through a number of players who kind of are emblematic of the change that Juve had to go through. But if this was a Juve that was going to compete with Inter for the title, I might agree with that comment that Weston McKennie's not good enough for Juventus. But I don't think that's true right now. And again, I'm not saying he needs to be, or I'm not saying that based on where Juve is, Weston McKennie is a locked-in starter at Juve. That's probably not true. And he has been inconsistent in his career. And all of us have said, hey, Weston, maybe get your physical fitness together, and that will help you be more consistent as a player, probably prove to your coaches that the commitment is there. Your manager will buy in and believe in you. And then here we go. Maybe you get a good run here. Because I like Weston McKennie as a person based on what I know about him. He's obviously had plenty of moments in his career you would question his judgment, not necessarily on the field, but off the field. I mean, Weston has been known to trip into some trouble. And if he does that on a regular basis, well, then that's why managers will look sideways at him. Now, if he trains well, if he comes in, if Thiago Motta said, you don't have a spot in our team, you need to find a new solution, and Weston McKennie goes out and busts his ass in training and shows the ability that we know he has, then that may explain why Motta has done a 180 on Weston McKennie. But what it doesn't mean is that Weston McKennie is going to play a ton at Juve this year. Like the meter has only ticked over to Weston McKennie as a squad player at Juventus. We went from he's out of the squad, he's not part of the plan, he needs to go find a new club, to Weston McKennie is a squad player at Juventus. And we are talking about a player who is maybe not critical for the U.S. men's national team based on some midfield options, although you look around the player pool right now and the guys that are having trouble getting their careers sorted, getting their path figured out, finding a club that will play them. Luca comes to mind. Luca Del Torre is not nearly as dynamic as Weston McKennie. It's a different player, important to point out. But if we're talking about guys who can play in midfield, Luca would be nice to have in his best form as we hit important games. And obviously right now, no important games, so it's not necessarily ringing alarm bells, but you're concerned because in addition to Weston McKennie having problems at Juve, Luca Del Torre does not seem to be in the plans at Celta Vigo. And also, again, Thiago Motta remaking Juve, changing the way that they play or changing their outlook. One saying Thiago wants goal scorers. He already has players that can give assists, and Weston has lacked goals lately. Now, there was a time where Weston McKennie had the knack that we've seen in certain midfielders to arrive at the right moment, find a way to score goals. It does feel like at Juve last season, his role tended to be to sit deeper, to maybe play the pass rather than make the run. There was a couple of moments, and he has scored some goals at Juve, but maybe not nearly enough for Thiago Motta. Fair enough. All right, let me come back to Mauricio Pochettino. Now, this is a column by Mike DeCourcy at the Sporting News. A guy I talk to on a regular basis. He calls me up for thoughts sometimes. Just going to mention that. I'm not friends with Mike, but I respect him as a writer. His story says, Mauricio Pochettino may want to live in Europe while coaching U.S. men's national team, ? Go ahead and let him. Now, that headline is interesting because it doesn't really tell us, well, is Mike on the side of, yes, it's okay if he coaches the national team and lives in Europe, or it's not okay? Now, Mike, as a writer, does make some jokes here. London, Arkansas, London, Michigan. He can live in those kind of Londons. Yeah, Mike also quotes Alexi Lalas. I won't dwell on that. I've heard Alexi opine on this particular topic about how he wants a national team head coach who is going to be both the good, right, proper fit for the national team and a guy who can sell the game in the United States building up to a home World Cup. And I've argued with Alexi on WNBC about this. We don't need a coach who's going to look good on television or sound good in an interview. We don't need that. What we need is a coach who helps us win games, because the greatest way to sell soccer in America is to have a U.S. men's national team. I mean, beyond what the U.S. women have done, and that's a huge part of our growth in this country. But if we want to go further, if we want the game to truly blow up, the U.S. men's national team winning games is the most important part of this. So if Mauricio Pochettino is the right guy to help the U.S. men's national team win games, I don't care if he looks good on television, sounds good on television, does all the interviews, all those things. Now, this is the part about, again, do we care if Mauricio Pochettino is based in Europe while he coaches the U.S. men's national team? And there are kind of like two different ways I think about this. One of them is, oh, thank you, Mauricio, for being our coach. We're so blessed to have you. We can't believe you chose us, Mauricio. Thank you so much. You're a god of soccer tactics. We'll take whatever you want to give us, which, it's a little sad, right? It's a little desperate sounding. I know we are desperate. Said it on the Best Soccer Show. We're kind of desperate. Let's not pretend we're not. But I don't know that I love that dynamic. It doesn't make me feel comfortable if we're like, yes, Mauricio Pochettino will do whatever you want us to do. On the other hand, if you think about it practically, does it matter? Do we care? I see this as a program, a U.S. men's national team program that is maturing out of that desperate need to have a salesman or an American who's going to fly our flag the way we want him to, or even, because Mauricio Pochettino is very much not Jurgen Kinsman, having a coach who is sort of rah, talks about our potential all the time and trying to sell the notion that, America is a sleeping giant in the world's game and wants to tell us that. I mean, that was one thing we got from Jurgen. And look, I do appreciate that. Like, I appreciate it from Jurgen Kinsman that he was a guy who believed in American soccer. Probably still does. I mean, I don't know exactly what Jurgen's up to. He got fired by South Korea, right? Okay, it doesn't matter. Jurgen Klinsmann's in the news again because a certain former U.S. men's national team goalkeeper made some interesting statements in a column he wrote for the Daily Mail, which, damn it, Tim, why are we writing in the Daily Mail? Like, Tim, what are you doing? Tim, you're writing in the Daily Mail? I don't have the story up right now. But Tim Howard basically said Jurgen Klinsmann didn't do any soccer. He did all this psychology stuff. He had us on outings and excursions, and we did all these things as a team, but we didn't actually do soccer, and we needed to rely on Michael Bradley and Josie Altidore, and I think he mentioned somebody else when it comes to getting the team right on the field, that Jurgen did nothing. Now, let's not forget that Philipp Lahm said the exact same thing about Jurgen Kinsman when Kinsman was coaching Bayern Munich. That after Klinsmann left and Philipp Lahm wrote a book, he said Jurgen Klinsmann gave us no direction of how to play and that we had to figure it out together in the locker room and on the field outside of his leadership. I mean, this all fits in with the narrative, too, that in 2006, the tournament where Jurgen Klinsmann made his name as a coach by leading Germany to a semifinal on home soil that they really weren't supposed to be in based on the youth of their squad and some other things, that it was Yogi Löw who really did all the important work of getting that team ready to play. And that Jurgen was the rah-rah guy. He was the Tony Robbins of Germany. And he kind of turned out to be the Tony Robbins of the United States. But Jurgen Klinsmann was the salesman. And I think that Sunil Gulati hired Jurgen Klinsmann for a couple of reasons, intoxicated by his mentality, by his attitude, by his celebrity, by his playing career clearly. And Sunil Gulati thought maybe we get a good coach who can lead us to victories. And I'd still give Jurgen Klinsmann credit for getting the United States out of that group in 2014 in Brazil. That was not an easy group to get out of. He got us out of that group. He deserves credit for that. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, we did that in spite of Jurgen Klinsmann, and then say, oh, well, or say, oh, don't give him credit for it when he achieved that. You can't move the goalposts on these achievements, right? You get out of that kind of group, deserve credit as a coach. You can't take that away from him, even if maybe he wasn't the right guy moving forward after that World Cup. Again, second cycle. Can we just put this in the damn bylaws already? Stop giving head coaches a second cycle with the U.S. men's national team. But Mauricio Pochettino doesn't need to be a salesman. He doesn't need to rah-rah. He doesn't need to do any of those things. He needs to turn this group of players into winners. I think that Pochettino is such an upgrade in the quality, the experience of coaches we've ever had. All right. Mauricio Pochettino. And this is not me just worshiping at the altar of Argentina or European football where he's made his bones as a manager. It's just a recognition that what he's accomplished matters. Right. This is a guy who's done more in his young coaching career. He's not by no means an old guy. That's another part of this I like, than any coach we've ever had. I respect Bora Milutinovic. We needed a coach with some experience in 94. He helped us out. Good on you. Good on you, Bora. Right? Bruce Arena is a guy that I think is a very good coach. Is he a good soccer mind? I don't know. I think what he knows how to do is to give his players autonomy to go win games. And there's a value in that, especially at the national team level, and it showed up in 2002. Bruce Arena deserved tons of credit for what happened in 2002. But that's pretty much it, right? You're not going to compare. Bob Bradley, nice career, has done some things since then. Obviously, it's been a weird road for him. He's a good coach. He's not Mauricio Pochettino, and nobody would argue that. So we're hiring, if it gets done, the most successful coach we've ever had for the U.S. men's national team. And again, I don't know that you want to set a precedent of you don't have to give us any time in the United States if you're going to coach our national team. But if we're talking about the most important World Cup we've had since 94, well, I mean, come on. Let the man live in Europe. Let the man do what he wants to do in that way. As long as it feels as long as you are assured that he is giving you full effort, like, why would you question this? I don't want to be used. I don't want U.S. soccer to be treated as a cash register for Mauricio Pochettino. But have you ever seen that man coach a team and felt like he's mailing it in? That he doesn't care. That this is, he won't put full effort in if he takes this national team job. You can talk about the cynical elements of this from a Pochettino perspective. Now he leaves Chelsea. Chelsea's a friggin' mess. It's a debacle. It's a tire fire on top of a garbage fire rocketed into space. Like, what is Chelsea at this point? Maresca's out here saying, oh, we only have 25 players in training. The rest of these guys. I mean, still, it's ridiculous what's happening at Chelsea. I get it, right? Why he left. So what does he do? What is it? What are his options? Does Mauricio Pochettino go for another big job? Oh, there's a big job out there, and go back through the cycle that he just went through at PSG and at Chelsea? Or does he try something new, a project? Does he take on a challenge, which certainly the U.S. men's national team is? Now, he could go down the ranks of club football. He could return to a place like Southampton and maybe build a project there, but it's still club football. It's still intensely pressurized, especially if you're in England, any number of European countries. And he's clearly not going to get paid anywhere near what he's used to getting paid if he goes and takes one of those jobs. So why not international soccer? Why not the U.S. men's national team? Argentina's not coming up open anytime soon. He's not pushing Scaloni out, not a world champion. And I don't know what his other connections to other nations might be, what he might be open to. I mean, here's an opportunity to coach. Let's forget about the talent. I mean, I think there is some talent there, and I think Pochettino wouldn't be taking this job. I mean, this is something we can take to heart. Pochettino would not be taking this job if he didn't think there was talent there for him to work with. And I can't imagine he's completely ignorant of the kind of player that the U.S. men's national team has. I can't imagine. He seems like too smart a guy. So I'm just pointing that out. Like, if Mauricio Pochettino wants to live in Europe, he better have a good reason. I mean, he will have an easier travel schedule to see the players who are based in Europe, and most of the U.S. men's national team is, if not all of it. I saw it at Copa America. You can roll out an 11 based in Europe. I mean, I don't think anybody should be locked in. Coaches, anybody should be locked in this idea that we can't have MLS players in our national team because they're not good enough. Painting with that broad brush is ridiculous. It limits you as a coach. But I would expect that Pochettino knows most of the top-level talent that he would be using in the national team is in Europe. And by the way, let's not forget about the knock-on effect here. Because somebody mentioned Jurgen Kinsman saying that players should move to better leagues. Jurgen's insistence on U.S. players moving abroad to better leagues did have an effect on many young players' mentality down the pyramid. He helped play a part. Don't deny that. Don't deny that at all. I think I don't know, but what I never understood is if there really was a mentality among American players like, I'm not going to go to Europe and try to get to a better league. I'm just going to stick around here and stay home. I think most players begin their careers imagining the highest level possible for them to play. And a lot of them work that way. Now, I think what may be a complicating factor here is some players make poor decisions on where to go based on the idea that just getting to Europe represents some massive step forward. That's not always the case. I don't want to pick apart any careers necessarily, but I think that's an important thing to point out, that it's not a one size fits all situation. But Jurgen did have an impact on that, pushing players to go to Europe. And I would say that, one thing we have to give Greg Berhalter credit for, I mean, it's really hard to deny that the dual national thing really went our way in a lot of ways while Berhalter was head coach of the national team. What the reason was for that, I don't want to get into, but certainly he had an impact bringing in dual internationals. Mauricio Pochettino is going to have more pull with club coaches with those conversations than Greg Berhalter by 10, 15, 20 times. I mean, I'm not saying that Mauricio Pochettino can get it so that an American player gets playing time when he isn't at his club team. But I would imagine that those conversations, just the communication that Pochettino might have with clubs is going to carry some weight. Right. So again, this is, or maybe it's a matter of helping a player get to a new club. And if Pochettino's vouching for a player, that's going to be a major, major credit to that player. Because if Mauricio Pochettino, I mean, he has a conflict of interest. He has a vested interest in seeing that player play. But if Mauricio Pochettino calls you up and you're running a team somewhere and says, "Hey, my guy needs a place to play. He's talented. Give him a shot." Are you going to listen to Greg Berhalter more or Mauricio Pochettino more? I mean, I don't need to answer that question. We all know. We all know the answer to that. I mean, it's unnecessary. It's one thing that I'm not sure everybody is really thinking about. All right, I'm going to close this down. But I want to share a story. I was on Twitter X whatever, just a couple minutes ago. And I was surprised to see this. I guess the Athletic, now the New York Times Athletic, was sharing a story about the Silverdome. I don't know why they were sharing a story about the Silverdome. Oh, I guess this has been updated. Oh, this is Pablo Maurer now. I thought this was an old story. August 21st, 2024, right there. Okay. So Pablo, you know Pablo Maurer. Most of us do, right? He's intrepid. It's a great word for Pablo Maurer. So I just got a cat. Congratulations to Pablo. You could give that guy a call. But he apparently went to the Silverdome and wrote about it. Obviously, the Silverdome is. This is the picture I was thinking. This is what I was thinking of. He went to the Silverdome in 2016. Maybe this is that story with a new date on it, and they're recycling it a bit. But this is the picture he had of the Silverdome from 2016. Remember that this is the place where Wijnaldum scored the free kick against Switzerland in the opening game of the World Cup with the United States in 1994. If you didn't know that, well, now you know. So Pablo went. I wanted to mention not just because this is the World Cup scene when the United States played. I don't know if this is the U.S. game or not. It says the first 94 World Cup game played it at the Silverdome. We were playing games in the Silverdome. So weird. Some people probably don't even remember what the Silverdome was. But a couple years ago, I mean, maybe 8 years ago, when Pablo was writing for a different outlet and I was doing podcasts and other things, we came across plans. I don't know if he did, and I just picked it up from him. I really don't remember. But there was a plan, some crazy, insane, no reason to believe it actually happened plan to turn the Silverdome into multiple arenas. Like, I think there was going to be some sort of like music hall or maybe 2 different music halls, and then they would build a floor, a second level to the Silverdome, and then they would build on top of that a smaller stadium that I think could even be open air, and then they would have put a soccer team, an MLS team, playing in that open air stadium at the top. I need to find these plans. I should have prepared for that. I should have brought those plans because they exist somewhere on the internet, because really nothing dies on the internet. But the Silverdome, man, what could have been with the Pontiac Silverdome? And now we're at what, Detroit? Do they need an MLS team? All right, Detroit City FC fans, don't come at me. All right, I got to go, but thanks for hanging out, guys. A little bit of a news update. Hopefully be back. I might do these on a fairly regular basis, but yeah, talk to you soon.